Hey guys, Trevor with Shadow Systems. It's Technical Tuesday. I want to do something a little different today. So we're all experiencing this lack of ammunition, right? That's the problem. Is it's hard to find ammo right now, and practice is expensive, and people are kind of hoarding, and I totally get that. But my true, sincere belief is that, especially as a new shooter, getting good at shooting doesn't require ammunition. I really don't think it does. I think that building the right techniques and getting better at the mechanics of shooting and watching the sights is actually done in dry fire. You know, being in a live fire environment is kind of chaotic, right? You've got, the sights lifting and recovering and recoil and noise and hearing protection, and it's kind of a hard place to learn mechanics. Now, you definitely need to do it, but your baseline skill set can be developed without ammunition. And I'm going to show you what I think is the right way to dry fire. And the one piece of gear that I really think you should get, okay? Now, there are some really cool dry fire systems out there now, and I won't claim to be familiar with all of them, okay? I've tried some. I think they definitely have their place, but if I was gonna go spend $100 on something to help me with dry fire, I would actually get this other piece of equipment first, and that is a timer, okay? And actually there are apps for your phone that function as a timer, but having a real timer does make it quite a bit easier, okay? So I'm gonna walk through just a couple examples of the kind of things that I might do, and you can get really creative, and you can take this as far as you wanna go. But here's what we're gonna do. So I've got a DR920 here, okay? Obviously we wanna make sure there's no ammunition anywhere in the room, no ammunition on your person. This one does have, it does have dummy rounds in it. So these are, dummy rounds with no primer. Okay, so I loaded these on a reloading press, but you can buy them too. I really think it's important that the gun is approximately the right weight. An unloaded gun that's got nothing in it is really light. So I really think you should get some dummy rounds, or even one of those weighted magazines. They make those too, because that's really helpful. Okay, so I'm gonna use dummy rounds for my practice, okay? In case somebody's curious, I'm using a CompTac holster. That's what I've got on. I think it's called the M-Tac, I think. I've also got an empty magazine because we're going to use that in a minute too. All right, so the timer. Okay, well, just high level on what a shot timer actually does. It's designed for live fire training, but it can help a lot in dry fire as well. And how does it work? Well, when you push the button, you can set it to either have a delay where you can push it yourself, or if somebody were timing you, you can set it to have no delay. But after you push the button, there's a beep, okay? That zeroes the clock out. Now, right now there's a par time set, so you heard a second beep. But under normal circumstances, you just hear one beep, and then there's a microphone here that actually picks up the shots. And so the numbers get bigger, and it times it to sort of the 10th of a second. There's one. You can do it that way too. There's a shot, okay? So you guys can see how it works. The value for dry fire, though, is to set a par time, okay? And that is a start beep and an end beep. And the goal is to try to complete whatever action you're doing in that amount of time. And then you can progressively speed up. So I've got a par time in here right now of, where is it? 1.5 seconds, okay? So a 1.5 second draw from concealment is pretty quick. So I'm gonna try to start there. But the beauty of dry fire is it is a world without consequence. If you screw up the technique and you drop the gun in the living room, big deal, okay? You learned something. That means you gotta back off, but it's safe, okay? So we can start to really push our limits. So I've got my weighted gun here, and I'm gonna get into my start position. When I'm doing concealed carry draws, I'll usually start in a very neutral stance. So I'm just standing here neutral, and my goal is to get that shot off. I've got an IPSC target across the room. My goal is to get that shot off before that second beat, and then I reset, okay? So we'll do it again. So I'm gonna stand in a neutral stance, okay? So I was a little bit rough that time. I kind of got caught in my shirt, but even still, I'm breaking the shot before the beep, okay? So now I do that a dozen times, and now I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna reduce the par time, okay? And normally, you would go in steps. You wouldn't, you might just reduce it by 10% or something like that. I'm gonna take it from 1.5 seconds all the way down to 1 second, which I know is probably gonna be too fast. So I'm gonna really be pushing my limits right now, but that's the idea. You'll find out where your breaking point is. So this is 1 second. All right, let's see what happens. I blew it. I blew it. All right, let's do it again, and I gotta start neutral. Oh, almost got it that time. My grip was a little jacked up. That time I got it. But the point is, I'm learning where my limits are, right? And I know now that, 1 second's really too fast for me, but maybe 1.2 is okay. And you can perfect these techniques, and you can start out slow, and you can build your speed, and you can find out where your breaking point is, and then you can back off, okay? So it's a really powerful way to dry fire. You can also do it with, more kind of involved manipulations. So like as an example for a reload. So like I said earlier, I've got dummy rounds here in the gun, okay? I'm gonna actually have that magazine in my pocket. I'll just do a reload out of my pocket for right now. And I've got an empty magazine, which I'm now gonna put in the gun, and I'll lock the slide to the rear. So we're gonna simulate a slide lock reload, okay? Out of a pocket, which, it's not the best way, but anyway. So I have to rethink my par time a little bit. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I think my par time now is maybe more like, I don't know, we'll put it at 3 seconds, okay? So a good draw or a good reload, out of like a USPSA rig is probably like 1.5 seconds, but that's, out of a USPSA rig, I'm drawing out of a holster, so I'm gonna give myself some extra time. So I'm doing a reload now. What's the condition of the gun? Well, the slide's locked to the rear, and I'm probably squeezing pretty hard because I'm on the gun, and now I'm gonna try to do a reload out of my pocket. So I'll go ahead and start the beat. Okay, so we found out 3 seconds was probably more time than I needed, right? So I'm gonna get that round out and grab my magazine and put my reload magazine back in my pocket and get reset. Okay, slide lock reload, here we go again. Okay, so still 3 seconds is too slow. So now I pick up the pace and I find out my limit. Let's say my limit reloading out of my pocket is, a second and a half, 2 seconds, whatever. And then now you know. And you can get as elaborate as you want, right? You can figure out, okay, I think my draw is gonna be 1 second or 1.5 seconds. Let's say my draw is gonna be 1.5 seconds, and then I'm gonna take a step forward to that position, and that's gonna take 1/2 second, so I'm at 2, and then I'm going to, index on a target, and it's gonna take 0.3 seconds, so now I'm at 2.3, and then I'm gonna try to get my shot off before the second beep, and I'm gonna set a par time for 2.3. I know it sounds kind of involved, but this just brings a level of discipline and measurement to what you're actually doing. And I also think that you learn things more permanently, they stay in your brain more if you do them under a little bit of stress, okay? So, that's kind of my pitch for the timer. 2 other questions that come up a little bit related to dry fire, which I'll just touch on briefly. One of them is, do we recommend the use of a snap cap, right? A snap cap is basically a little spring-loaded dry fire bullet, and it provides some protection to your firing pin. Generally speaking, if you do a ton of dry fire, ideally you do have a snap cap inside the chamber. We have seen parts break from dry fire, and I will tell you the last one that did it, when we asked the guy how many times he dry fired, he said he thought about 20,000 times. So yeah, I mean, a lot of dry fire is going to potentially break strikers, or, we have even seen a breech face once get blown out from behind. It was crazy. So it can happen, and I think that putting a snap cap in there, if you're dry firing a billion times a day, is something you should probably do if you can. But I don't think it's a major requirement. Most people don't dry fire that much, okay? The other thing too, just as a kind of another little safety note, and I'm mentioning this because we were talking about draws. So, as you build your speed and you learn to get faster out of the holster, that does not mean you need to be fast going into the holster. And I see a lot of people that do this, and I just really think that you're asking for a problem if you're not careful. I mean, a piece of gear or the corner of your shirt or something can hook into that trigger guard And if the situation is just right, like something like this, when you push that gun down into the holster, it can pull the trigger back. So my point is, like, get fast and work on your skills, but when you reholster, be deliberate, slow down, make sure you're not doing something unsafe, okay? All right, that's dry fire. That's the pitch for a timer. Obviously, the next phase with the timer is you go out to the range and you actually shoot live, and the timer, tells you how your real performance is, which is usually a lot slower than dry fire. But that's how it's supposed to be. That's how you learn to push the envelope safely and then back off and be in perfect control when you're doing actual live fire. All right, Technical Tuesday for the week. There it was. We will see you again next week. Thank you.